What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Autopsy Rant. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but really just kind of a single topic here because I know this is going all over the place, and I've seen a few videos on it, and I don't have social media, so I'm kind of a bit out of the loop on some of these things, but holy shit, Sam Harris loses his goddamn mind. Those of you who know me know I have a lot of respect for Sam. I've been a fan of his for like a decade now at least. He's done a lot of great work. He's done a lot of great work, especially with Islam and the issues going on with that. But of course, Sam is a left-wing guy. Sam has always been a left-wing guy. But, you know, Donald Trump has a way of breaking motherfuckers. And Sam is not the first. He won't be the last. It's just a clear example in my mind of what tribal politics does to the brain. And by the way, for anybody out there, I know a lot of people have said, you know, Trump derangement syndrome, oh, that's just what they throw at anybody who's not, you know, sucking Trump's dick or whatever. No. This is what we mean by Trump derangement syndrome. There are a lot of people like this, and there are a lot of intellectuals like this specifically. So what Sam did on this trigonometry show, I know everybody by now has seen the clip, and you've probably heard a lot of takes on this. I just found it fascinating, because not only does Sam openly acknowledge a left-wing conspiracy to suppress information, because that information could help Trump. He even mentions that in 2016, the Hillary email scandal and the investigation that went into that, he says, is why Hillary lost to Trump. So, in this situation, when the New York Post puts out an article about the Hunter Biden laptop, Twitter removes the post, blocks you from even seeing it, blocks you from even sending a link in like a private message, from my understanding, to let people see it. Sam acknowledges that this is a left-wing conspiracy from the social media companies to stop that information from getting out, because that information could end up helping Trump. Not only does Sam acknowledge that that was a left-wing conspiracy, he openly endorses such a conspiracy. He thinks that that is totally fine. And of course, now everybody knows the dead children comment that he made, something to the effect of, at that point when that was coming out, he didn't care if Hunter Biden had like a basement full of dead kids. Trump was worse. Not only was Trump worse, Trump University specifically was worse than anything that could have been in there. There's a couple of problems with this. One, that's absolutely fucking insane. For what little bit I know about Trump University, let's say Trump University, take the worst case example. Let's take the worst take on Trump University. And let's say that take was entirely true. Okay, that is still minuscule compared to government funds and crooked dealings going on in government at the expense of the taxpayer. It's an entirely different thing. And it's way worse, especially if the president's son had bodies of children. This is some Sin City shit. Remember that dude in Sin City that like raped little kids and stuff, but his dad was a politician, so kept getting him off? I'm just saying, that to me is way the fuck worse. And the shady dealings going on, backroom deals where Joe Biden gets money through his son for getting, you know, these deals going on in other countries and stuff, that would be way worse anyways than Trump University. But, I mean, that's one thing. It's another thing for Sam to say he's concluded that on his own, therefore you and me and the rest of the plebs out there, we shouldn't even have access to that information, because our moral superiors, our intellectual superiors, like Sam apparently, have decided for the rest of us that we don't need to see that because it could end up helping a guy he doesn't like. I mean, you got to remember, Sam has had this thing for Trump since 2016. I remember Sam saying that he would rather roll the dice with a random citizen in 2016 than elect Trump. And then he said openly he knew how bad that could be. You know, your average citizen is not somebody you really want running the country. Not that you should want anybody running the country. And I think what we're about to get into here is more evidence of that as a whole. Because this isn't a love thing for Trump. This is what a lot of people haven't understood about people who tacitly supported Trump back in the day or tacitly support Trump now. They don't get this. You know, when I voted for Trump in 2016, I did not vote for him in 2020. I didn't vote for him or Biden in 2020. But in 2016, it seemed clear I just had this idea that you're going to get fucked by both of these people. At least this one guy's going to spit on it first. That's the way that I always put it. I think all politicians are authoritarians on a spectrum. I think Trump is verifiably less authoritarian than Joe Biden. Trump wasn't some radical reformer, but for 2/3 of Americans, their tax burden was lowered. There were no new wars started under Trump, though he technically didn't end any either. There was less regulation, and whether you support that or not, you have to acknowledge that regulation is government control, and to reduce that government control is the opposite of authoritarian. I hear these words like fascist thrown around at fucking everybody. Nazi, all this shit. The main one being just underlying what they mean, because I don't think a lot of these people even understand what the fuck fascism is. What they mean is authoritarian. And I think comparatively, the Biden administration, since day one, has been increasing government control. The Biden administration is verifiably, in my opinion, more authoritarian than the Trump administration. I'll give you some examples here. Do you remember mandatory vaccines? And you remember how the only reason you were not forcefully jabbed at the expense of your job, your health care, and your livelihood, your home? The only reason you weren't forcefully jabbed is because Trump-appointed Supreme Court justices looked at that and said that is an insane violation of OSHA's authority. Now, say what you will about Trump or those justices, I could say a lot. But you can't say the people who stopped millions of citizens from being coercively jabbed with a vaccine are the authoritarians. Same with the Supreme Court recent gun ruling. Even if you hate guns and private citizens owning guns, you think it's the worst thing in the world, you cannot justifiably say that it is authoritarianism to not ban citizens from owning guns or carrying guns. You cannot say that it is authoritarian to let states decide their own laws on abortion rights, especially considering that's what the fucking Constitution says. And that's whether you are pro-abortion rights or not. The whole political divide to me is just insanity. And this case with Sam is just another good example of it. It's as if no one actually gives a shit of what these labels mean. I don't understand how these people are coming to these conclusions. And that, as I told you I would get to, is the problem with politics. It's reason 2,354 that I'm an anarchist. Politics keeps us at each other's throats because we're all fighting over the gun in the room, and the gun is the muscle of government. This system necessitates these hostilities. These hostilities are not abnormalities. They are features of a system of politics. Left-wingers hate the idea that right-wingers could get that gun, so they have to do everything they possibly can to stop it. And the right does the same thing to the left. And this is where Sam is. It's absolutely pathetic. This is somebody that is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Read some of his works. Listen to some of his lectures. This guy is just on point so much. But to see somebody so smart get something so wrong is just incredible to me. And on that topic, where do you think the right wing is going to go from here? So the left and the mainstream media have painted right-wingers as extreme conspiracy theorists who think the government's evil and, they're fucking out to get them and they're going to do anything that they can to fuck over the little red, white, and blue loving guide in some fucking rural state. Then the right has shit like this that they can point to as a clear and present example of exactly that sort of conspiracy. Because it's not extreme and it's not crazy. It was obvious what Twitter was doing with the Hunter Biden laptop story from the beginning. But apparently Sam has tried to walk this comment he made on that podcast back a little bit, but apparently even the walk back is still pretty awful because of the implications. He said that he would not support basically the Democrats engaging in voter fraud to stop Trump. But it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, like why that would be a bridge too far. Why voter fraud would be a bridge too far. I mean, especially considering that the opposition party had the power, they had the means to do it, they had obvious, clear motivation over 4 years. I mean, you gotta remember, they tried to paint the guy as a Russian puppet who was installed by Putin for like 3-4 years. Like his whole first term pretty much was wrapped around this known bullshit of Russia collusion and conspiracy. And nobody cares. There's no consequences for any of that. So how do you think the opposition party is going to feel? How do you think Republicans are going to feel going to the polls? I think I know how they're going to feel. And I think you're going to see the left get absolutely BTFO'd in the midterms. But let's see. The elections are coming up. I'm curious to know what everybody thinks about this. I know I have a lot of viewers that are Sam Harris fans. I've been a Sam Harris fan, like I said, forever, for a real long time. And I still think, I don't dismiss all the good arguments Sam has made on different points. He's got good arguments, fair arguments against Donald Trump even. This is just absolute fucking insanity. This is something I would expect from some CNN anchor or something like that. I guess I had a bit too much respect for Sam to think he could do something like this, because this is pretty fucking awful. And the thing is, if Sam, somebody who's as rationally minded as Sam, if he can support some complete bullshit like this, what about the rest? What are the rest? And if Sam can say this openly out loud, it kind of makes me wonder in the back of his mind what he would possibly support down the line. I don't think, even if he says voter fraud is a bridge too far, I don't believe that. Not after hearing this. I mean, to openly admit that is just fucking horrible. Let me know what you think in the comments, man. Are you still a fan of Sam Harris? Do you think Sam Harris can go fuck himself? I think it's embarrassing, but let me know what you think down below.